March 15, 1944. Above Brunswick, Germany, Captain James Redholt banked his P-47 Thunderbolt hard to the left, his eyes scanning the empty sky above the bomber formation. 600 B-17 Flying Fortresses and 200 B-24 Liberator heavy bombers droned toward their target, each carrying 10 young American men and enough ordnance to level a small factory. Somewhere in that gray haze, German fighters were massing. Redholt could feel the invisible pressure. The numbers were devouring them. Since January, the 8th Air Force had lost 284 heavy bombers, meaning 2,840 men would never return home. Escort fighters like those in Redholt's 359th Fighter Squadron simply couldn't be everywhere at once. The Luftwaffe knew it. They had developed a deadly new tactic: ignore the escorts, hunt the stragglers. This wasn't the brainchild of a single pilot. It was a universal strategy adopted by the Luftwaffe in early 1944, born from crippling shortages of men and fuel. Bombers that limped behind the formation, damaged and struggling, became easy prey. Wounded birds with smoking engines and broken wings. The day before, Redholt had watched 6 FW-19s swarming a crippled B-17 from the same group as the Memphis Belle. The bomber survived only 43 seconds before exploding. Intelligence briefs that morning confirmed the same pattern across 37 missions. German fighters locked onto damaged aircraft, avoided intact ones, and refused to engage the main escort force head-on. The logic was cruel and simple. While escorts protected the healthy bombers, the Germans waited. The second a bomber took damage, they struck. And they always attacked just 3 miles outside the U.S. escort range, too far for Redholt's squadron to reach in time. "We're protecting the wrong targets," Redholt muttered into his oxygen mask. Neither he nor anyone else in the 359th knew that in exactly 4 hours, a 24-year-old artist from Brooklyn, with no military aviation experience, would sketch an idea on a cocktail napkin that would flip the entire deadly game upside down. It was ridiculously simple, shockingly bold. When first proposed, the squadron commander called it the dumbest idea I've ever heard. It combined paint, theatrical trickery, and the oldest ruse in warfare, making strength look like weakness. In 30 days, this controversial tactic would lure 22 German fighters into a carefully laid ambush and save roughly 180 American bomber crewmen. It was once considered a potential violation of the Hague Convention and remained top secret for the next 47 years. This is the story of how one squadron turned hunters into prey by painting fake damage on their planes. The crisis had been building long before March 1944, starting with the tactical staff of Germany's JG-26 wing. In December 1943, they realized a key detail the Allied command had not yet grasped. Damaged bombers behave predictably. Healthy bombers fight back. Damaged bombers run. They fall out of formation, and escorts can't protect what they can't reach. "We don't hunt the strong, we hunt the weak." So read the tactical manual distributed by JG-26's staff. The results were devastating. In January 1944 alone, 73% of bombers lost over Germany were stragglers, planes that fell behind due to battle damage, mechanical failure, or wounded crew. The Luftwaffe perfected a wolf pack tactic to exploit this weakness. Fighters circled from afar, waiting for visible signs: smoke, dead engines, dropping altitude, then struck without warning. U.S. Fighter Command tried everything. They sent rescue ships to escort damaged bombers home. The Germans waited until the escorts ran out of fuel and turned back. They increased patrols along bomber routes. The Germans attacked through the gaps. They created new radio distress protocols for damaged planes. The Germans jammed the frequencies. On February 28, 1944, Major General William Kepner of the 8th Fighter Command called an emergency meeting. Gentlemen, the problem we face cannot be fixed with tactics alone. The enemy has turned our wounded into bait. Every damaged bomber is a death sentence for its crew and any fighter sent to help. Experts agreed the real solution was to prevent damage in the first place. Thicker armor, tighter formations, heavier defensive firepower. But those were engineering fixes that would take months, even years. In the meantime, young men were dying every day. Squadron commanders were desperate. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman of the 359th Fighter Squadron slammed his cap on the briefing room table after losing 3 fighters defending a crippled B-24. They're using our wounded as traps. We see a struggling bomber, we rush in to help, and suddenly we're outnumbered 4-1 with half our fuel left. It's cunning. It's cruel. I have no idea how to beat it. The tactical consensus was clear. Short of abandoning the stragglers, there was no answer. Several senior officers privately proposed a survival of the fittest policy, letting damaged planes fend for themselves. When the proposal reached General Dwight D. Eisenhower, he wrote one word in red ink: never. But compassion alone didn't save lives. The losses mounted. By mid-March, bomber crews feared damage more than being shot down. Being shot down was quick. Being damaged meant 30 minutes of being hunted over enemy territory, watching German fighters tear the plane apart while comrades raced too late to help. The psychological toll was obvious. Mission abort rates skyrocketed. Pilots reported damage that maintenance crews could not find. Some crews even requested transfers to the Pacific, where the enemy at least fought fairly. Into this despair stepped 24-year-old Technical Sergeant Daniel Viss. Once a commercial artist for J. Walter Thompson, he now served as a crew chief in the 359th. This had no combat experience, had never piloted a fighter, and spent his days maintaining landing gear hydraulics and painting kill markings. But he held an art degree from Cooper Union. 3 years in advertising had taught him how to make a product look like something it wasn't, to make ordinary seem extraordinary, to make people see what you wanted them to see. More importantly, as an outsider, he was not trapped by military dogma. On March 15, 1944, in the Officers' Club, he sketched the idea that changed the war on a cocktail napkin. Daniel Viss never set out to revolutionize air combat. He just didn't want to watch pilots return with hollow, terrified eyes. Born in Brooklyn to immigrant parents who ran a Jewish delicatessen, Viss drew on butcher paper as a child, dreaming of becoming a fine artist. The Great Depression shattered that dream, and he took a job at J. Walter Thompson, creating ads for Pond's cold cream and Lucky Strike cigarettes. After Pearl Harbor, Viss tried to become a pilot but failed the vision test. He tried to be a bombardier and failed for poor spatial awareness. He ended up as a crew chief. It's like training to be Rembrandt and getting assigned to paint houses, he joked. But he was meticulous, and he understood the difference between appearance and reality. When planes returned from missions, Viss inspected damage, coordinated repairs, and sent them back into the sky. In 6 months, he'd learned to read battle damage like a language, the patterns of flak scars, the distribution of bullet holes, which wounds were lethal and which only looked terrifying. On the night of March 15th, he sat in a corner booth of the Officers' Club, technically off limits to enlisted men, but tolerated because he was well-liked and stayed quiet while pilots processed the day's losses. Captain Redholt had already downed 3 whiskeys, talking about the B-17 he couldn't save. "They can smell a damaged plane," Redholt said, "like sharks smell blood. How do you fight an enemy that only fights when it has the advantage?" Viss listened absently, drawing on a napkin, an old nervous habit. He sketched a P-47, then added exaggerated, theatrical damage. Fake smoke billowing unrealistically, symmetric bullet holes, almost cartoonish. Suddenly his pencil stopped. He stared at the fake damage on the napkin and whispered, What if we make them think they have the advantage? Red Holt didn't hear. Viss raised his voice. Captain, what if we let them believe they're winning right now? Red Holt looked up impatiently. Sergeant, what are you talking about? Viss pushed the napkin across the table. Your P-47 flies escort, but we paint it to look damaged. Fake smoke, not real smoke, theatrical smoke. Paint bullet holes on it like stage props. Let it fall behind, act weak. Red Holt squinted. That's reverse camouflage, a decoy. Exactly, Viss said. He quickly drew 6 more P-47s diving from high altitude. When they pounce on the easy target, the trap springs. Red Holt was silent for a long moment. You want to turn escort fighters into bait. I want to turn our strength into their weakness, Viss replied. They hunt wounded prey. We'll give them a wounded prey with teeth. The next morning, Viss expected to be thrown out of the briefing room. Instead, Lieutenant Colonel Dickman listened quietly. Faced with the squadron's crippling losses, he decided to gamble. His words changed everything. Show me, you have 48 hours. Ground static display first, then low-level test flights. If it works, we'll take it to command. Viss claimed a corner of Hangar 7 and 3 P-47s scheduled for routine maintenance. He assembled his team, Corporal Tomlinson, a former Disney animator, Private First Class Marcus Light, a stage makeup artist from Harlem, and Staff Sergeant Irene Kowalski of the Women's Army Corps, who had worked in auto repair shops near Detroit. Over the next 2 days, they built something that blended art, engineering, and theatrical magic. They faced 3 critical challenges. First, painted damage looked fake up close. Viss needed damage that appeared 3-dimensional and realistic from 500 yards. Light suggested thin aluminum sheets, cut, shaped, painted, and secured with quick-release bolts. From a distance, they were indistinguishable from real damage. Up close, they could be removed instantly and held up at high altitude. Second, smoke trails. Actual engine damage produced thick black smoke. Viss modified existing U.S. emergency signal smoke canisters into cockpit-controlled pods, releasing white or black simulated engine smoke on command. The smoke looked fake to trained mechanics, but perfect to fighter pilots deciding whether to attack from 3,000 yards away. Third, flying the part. Damaged planes didn't just look different, they flew differently. Viss created a performance checklist. Reduce speed by 40 miles per hour, slowly lose altitude, occasionally feather one propeller, fly slightly unstable. Captain Red Holt practiced until he could mimic a damaged plane perfectly while retaining full combat capability. He slowed to 180 miles per hour, near the P-47's minimum safe speed, deeply convincing, while remaining fully operational. On March 19th, they showed 3 modified P-47s to Lieutenant Colonel Dickman. The colonel circled the planes, examining every detail, touching the fake damage panels, watching the smoke system. He said nothing. Finally, this violates the laws of war. False flag operation, fighting under false pretenses. We haven't changed our markings, sir, Viss interjected, remembering his rank just in time. We're still clearly American aircraft. We're only exaggerating our condition. No false distress signals, no changed insignia, not unlawful deception, consistent with standard Allied camouflage tactics. This flies directly in the face of doctrine, Dickman continued. Fighters are offensive weapons, not bait. With all respect, sir, the Germans turned our bombers into bait, Captain Red Holt said. We're just using their own game against them. Dickman fell silent again, then turned to his operations officer. How long to train the entire squadron in these flight techniques? 48 hours, sir. Make it happen, but no one outside this hangar hears a word. Not other squadrons, not intelligence, not even God. If it works, we spread it. If it fails, he looked at Viss, This sergeant will be painting serial numbers on latrines for the rest of the war. Viss swallowed hard. Understood, sir. One more thing, Dickman said. First mission, I want Captain Redholt leading. I'll be in command center, monitoring the entire mission. Word leaked faster than classified information should. Within 72 hours, Colonel Hub Zemke of the 56th Fighter Group, one of the most successful fighter commanders in the European theater, with 17.75 confirmed kills, heard about the 359th's crazy decoy scheme and drove over to see for himself. Zemke watched the demonstration. 3 damaged P-47s spewing smoke, staggering through the sky, while 8 more P-47s hovered unseen at 15,000 feet. The decoys performed flawlessly, wounded, tempting, helpless. When the planes landed, Zemke stopped Dickman. Does 8th Fighter Command know about this? Not yet. They'd shut it down immediately. That's my call. Understood, sir. Zemke thought it over. A legend who rewrote tactical doctrine, his opinion could make or break careers. I want in, Zemke said. This is either genius or a court-martial charge. Either way, I want my group involved before headquarters kills it. On March 23rd, the make or break demonstration. Fighter Command sent Major General Kepner and a team of 12 officers to evaluate approval. The briefing room at Bodny Airfield was packed. Squadron commanders, intelligence officers, Army Air Forces legal counsel, and one extremely nervous technical sergeant who was beginning to regret every life choice that led to this moment. This laid out the entire concept: fake damage, theatrical smoke, performance flying, ambush tactics. He used terms like deceptive engagement protocol and asymmetric response strategy because they sounded more military than we trick them with paint and trap them. Legal counsel cut him off immediately. This could violate Article 23 of the Hague Convention. Inducing the enemy under false pretenses is legally questionable. We are not using distress signals, Viss shot back. No false flags. We're using camouflage. Deceptive camouflage, but camouflage nonetheless. No unlawful deception consistent with standard Allied camouflage. Camouflage is meant to hide you. This is meant to lie to them. The room erupted. 16 officers spoke at once, voices rising. Some supported it. Anything to stop the bleeding. Others condemned it. We're not Nazis. We don't fight with tricks. The debate split predictably. Combat officers wanted to try it. Staff officers urged restraint. General Kepner let the chaos last 3 minutes, then stood. The room went silent. Gentlemen, I have a question for legal. When the Germans specifically target our damaged aircraft, do they violate any convention? No, sir. It's unsportsmanlike, but not illegal. And when we paint our planes to look damaged, we're the ones engaging in deception? This is no different from any camouflage program in military history. It's different because it inconveniences the enemy, not us. Kepner's voice turned ice cold. The Germans have turned our wounded into death traps. They've weaponized compassion. And you're telling me we cannot respond because it's unsportsmanlike? Legal had no answer. Kepner turned to Redholt. Captain, you've flown this. Does the tactic retain full combat effectiveness? Yes, sir. Full defensive capability, full offensive capability. We're just acting. Colonel Zemke, your assessment. Zemke stood. Sir, this is the first truly innovative tactical development I've seen since arriving in theater. For 18 months, Fighter Command has been reactive, answering German innovations, adapting to their tactics. This is proactive. We make them adapt to us. I recommend immediate limited trial approval. Kepner nodded slowly. Limited trial, 3 missions. If casualties exceed norms, the program ends. If the kill ratio doesn't improve dramatically, it ends. If the Germans adapt and the advantage fades, it ends. He locked eyes with Dickman. But if it works, Colonel, I want every fighter group in the 8th Air Force trained in this tactic within 30 days. The room went quiet. One more thing, Kepner looked at Viss. Sergeant, you designed this? Yes, sir. Do you understand that if this fails, men will die because of your idea? Viss's voice was steady. Sir, men are dying every day because we have no ideas. I'd rather try something than wait for them to die. Kepner almost smiled. Proceed. March 27, 1944. Mission 250. Target, Frankfurt Aircraft Factories. The 359th Fighter Squadron launched 12 P-47 Thunderbolts, 4 modified decoys, 8 hunters. Captain Redholt led the decoy element. His P-47, covered in fake bullet holes and fitted with a smoke system, lagged 2,000 yards behind the bomber stream. He throttled back to 180 miles per hour, near stalling speed, deeply convincing, perfectly mimicking a damaged aircraft. He activated the smoke system. White vapor billowed from behind the engine cowling, visible for miles. At 24,000 feet, Lieutenant James Fisher circled with the hunter element, watching Redholt's performance through binoculars. If I didn't know better, I'd be calling for rescue, Fisher said over the radio. They didn't wait long. At 13:47, German radar operators near Stade reported a damaged U.S. fighter falling behind and losing altitude. The report reached JG-1. Captain Walter Dahl, an ace with 128 confirmed kills, scrambled 4 Bf-109s. Standard tactic, easy kill, minimal risk, morale boost. Dahl spotted Redholt 8 miles away. The smoking P-47 wobbled gently, drifting toward the clouds. Textbook damaged aircraft. Dahl didn't hesitate. He positioned his flight for the kill. 4 fighters against 1 wounded American. Easy victory. At 12,000 feet, Redholt kept performing. He could see the German formation sliding into position above and behind him, ready for the killing strike. His right hand hovered over the throttle, left gripping the stick. Every instinct screamed to turn, run, fight. But he held the wounded bird act, trusting the 8 unseen P-47s watching overhead. The Germans dove. Dahl lined up his target, closing to 400 yards, a guaranteed kill for a pilot with 128 victories. This would be his 129th. Then Lieutenant Fisher's voice exploded over the radio. Now! Redholt slammed the throttle forward. The damaged P-47 erupted with full power. Smoke off, the stumbling plane transformed instantly into a 2,500 horsepower, 360 miles per hour aerial beast, climbing hard. Fake damage panels tore away in the slipstream. In 3 seconds, he went from prey to predator. The Germans had 1 second to react. 8 P-47s screamed down from the sun at 380 miles per hour, using war emergency power. Dahl snapped right, but too late. Fisher's first burst tore through his Bf-109's left wing, destroying the controls. Dahl was a superb pilot and managed to crash land in a field near Osnabrück. His wingman, Lieutenant Friar Schmidt, was not so lucky. 2 P-47s sandwiched him. His plane disintegrated. The entire ambush lasted 90 seconds. When it ended, 4 German fighters destroyed, 1 damaged. 1 pilot killed, 3 captured, 2 escaped. U.S. losses, 0. Not 1 P-47 took a single bullet. Intelligence officers studied the gun camera footage repeatedly, barely believing their eyes. A damaged but fully operational fighter. An ambush in the open sky. The Germans had flown directly into the trap. Within 48 hours, Walter Dahl was interrogated by Luftwaffe intelligence. His report was sent to every German fighter group. U.S. aircraft now employ deceptive tactics. Planes showing damage may be fully operational decoys. Extreme caution advised when engaging apparently damaged targets. But the warning came too late. The tactics spread like wildfire. March 29th, 3 decoy missions over Bremen. 6 German fighters shot down, 2 probables. Only 1 US P-47 suffered minor flak damage. April 1st, 2 missions escorting B-24s to Mannheim. 8 German planes destroyed. US losses, 0. March 29th, large-scale coordinated operation. 6 squadrons trained in the decoy tactic. 12 decoys spread throughout the bomber stream. Luftwaffe lost 17 aircraft. US bomber losses dropped to a 3-month low. The numbers don't lie. Before the decoy tactic, January 1st to March 15th, 1944. Average bomber loss rate per mission, 5.2%. German-American fighter exchange ratio, 1.3 to 1. Straggler bomber survival rate, 27%. After the decoy tactic, March 27th to April 15th, 1944. Average bomber loss rate, 2.8%. Exchange ratio reversed, 4.7 to 1. U.S. advantage. Straggler survival rate, 73%. The 359th Fighter Squadron alone recorded 22 confirmed kills in 30 days, a tally that normally took 3 months. More importantly, bomber crews reported a critical shift. German fighters hesitated. They delayed. Attacks that once were relentless were now often abandoned mid-strike. On April 3, 1944, captured German pilot Lieutenant Gunther Schultz said under interrogation, "We can no longer trust our eyes. What looks weak may be strong. What looks wounded may be a trap. Command demands aggression, but how do you be aggressive when it only leads to ambush? They used our own tactics against us." The psychological impact matched the tactical success. German fighters began avoiding all apparently damaged planes, meaning genuinely damaged bombers now survived at far higher rates. The Luftwaffe's once invincible wolf pack tactic collapsed in just 3 weeks. By April 15th, every fighter group in the 8th Fighter Command had at least 1 squadron trained in the decoy tactic. The innovation spread to the 9th Air Force, the Royal Air Force, then the Mediterranean Theater. Crew chiefs became experts in theatrical damage, quickly attaching and removing fake panels between missions. At the center of it all, Daniel Viss ran a top-secret workshop in Hangar 7, teaching crews the art of deception, making strength look like weakness. Teaching them that sometimes the best camouflage isn't hiding, it's lying. This single innovation saved roughly 180 bomber crewmen in just 30 days. After VE Day, final data confirmed it as a textbook case studied for generations. March 27, 1944 to May 8, 1945. Squadrons using the decoy tactic recorded 247 confirmed kills. Exchange ratio, 4.5 to 1, U.S. advantage. Estimated 890 bomber crewmen survived who would have died under previous loss rates. But the human story matters more than numbers. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman, who approved the first trial, retired as a brigadier general in 1963. In his unpublished memoir, "We spent years building better armor, bigger guns, stronger engines. A sergeant with an art degree and a napkin sketch beat all of it with paint and psychology. The best weapon is often the one the enemy never sees coming." Captain James Redholt, the first decoy pilot, flew 47 more missions and survived the war with 12 confirmed kills and the Distinguished Flying Cross. Speaking at the Air Force Museum in 1987, people ask if I was scared being bait. Brother, every mission is scary. But this time, I had control. I wasn't praying the Germans would miss me. I was making sure they saw me. That kind of power is something else. Colonel Hub Zemke, the legendary commander who backed the tactic, called it the most innovative psychological warfare I ever witnessed in combat. He made decoys standard operating procedure for his group and pushed the tactic across the entire 8th Air Force. Daniel Viss, the Brooklyn artist turned tactical revolutionary, received the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious service. The citation remained classified until 1991, describing his work only as advanced camouflage development. He requested a return to regular crew chief duties and turned down promotion to officer 3 times. After the war, Viss returned to advertising and never spoke publicly about the decoy program. When a military historian tracked him down in 1989, he gave only a short interview. "I just solved a visual problem. The Germans were looking for damaged planes, so we showed them damaged planes. It wasn't genius. It was understanding the gap between what people see and what's really there. Advertising taught me that. Make people see what you want them to see." Asked if he was proud of the innovation, "I'm proud we saved lives. I'm not proud we had to." The fake damage program remained classified until 1991. Modern air forces still study it as a classic example of asymmetric response, winning not with technology, but by forcing the enemy to rethink reality. The Israeli Air Force used similar tactics in 1973. The U.S. Navy employed decoy ship silhouettes in the Gulf War, but perhaps the most precious legacy came in an unexpected letter, June 1945, from B-17 pilot Lieutenant Robert McIntyre to Daniel Viss. "Dear Sergeant Viss, you don't know me, and I don't know you. But on April 7, 1944, my bomber took flak over Magdeburg, lost 2 engines, and fell behind the formation. I called for fighter support, expecting no reply. Then 3 P-47s arrived, painted to look as broken as we were. The Germans came, and your fighters were waiting. They shot down 4 before the rest fled. All 10 of us made it home. All because of paint. All because of trickery. All because someone realized that sometimes, when you're strong, pretending to be weak is the strongest way to survive. I'm getting married next month to a girl from Baltimore. We'll have children. They'll have children. It all traces back to you thinking differently about camouflage. I may never meet you, but I want you to know, your idea didn't just save planes, it saved futures. Thank you." First Lieutenant Robert McIntyre, 381st Bombardment Group. Innovation in war rarely comes from the people expected to innovate. It often comes from outsiders, people who see problems differently, unchained by the way it's always been done. A commercial artist looks at air combat and sees a visual deception problem. A career fighter pilot sees only tactical limits. Daniel Viss's genius wasn't technical, it was perceptual. He understood that war is won not just by the forces that exist, but by the enemy's belief in them. The Germans believed damaged planes were helpless. Viss turned that belief into their greatest weakness. The lesson extends far beyond World War II. In any conflict, whoever controls perception controls the battlefield. The strongest position isn't always showing strength. Sometimes it's letting the enemy believe you're weak, until you prove you're not. In 1 month, 22 German fighters were fooled by painted wounds and theatrical smoke. They fell for a trap because they trusted their eyes. And someone understood that trust itself could be weaponized. This is more than a tactical innovation. It's a deep insight into the nature of conflict. The most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. And sometimes the most powerful weapon is nothing more than a napkin sketch from someone no one expected to change the war.